2.5 years ago, I spent $2,500 across 30 acres in hopes of $225,000 worth of return. Did it work? Well, yes and no. Today I'm going to break down how it did, where it didn't, and 2 critical parallels between small farming and small business, principles that are important to lay hold on if you want to make more money than you spend, no matter what business you're in. I am raising Dorper sheep on 30 acres in Northeast Texas. Back in 2020, I jumped into agriculture with zero farming experience. I had a background in marketing and retail management. In fact, I started my first business at 10 years old. I've been an entrepreneur ever since. With that background in entrepreneurship, I understood the fact that being an entrepreneur means that you'll often work twice as hard for half the pay. And I paired that with an understanding of the dismal economic climate that does surround conventional American agriculture. All that to say, I knew that farming would be one of the hardest ways I would ever set out to earn an income. But I was okay with that because I had a deeper anchor point for shoving off into this farming venture. I wanted food security for both myself and my family, and something deep inside of me affirmed that managing land and animals together to produce clean, healthy food was a form of wealth that far surpasses dollars and cents. Now fast forward to 2023, and through diversifying my income streams on my farm, I was able to make agriculture my full-time job. In fact, I have a full outline of the whole 3-year marketing plan that I put in place to reach $100,000 in revenue, and I'll email it to you absolutely free if you click on the first link in the description of this video. Before I achieved my goal of going full-time into agriculture, I was convinced that I needed to expand my resource base, expand my land base beyond 30 acres to do so. Instead of working within the 30 acres I was already leasing from my family at that time, I wanted the 15 acres next door as well. But in my area, small tracts of land like that cost anywhere between $15,000 and $18,000 per acre. That's $225,000 conservatively for 15 acres. And that was an investment I was not ready or able to make at the time. So I turned to a simple principle of maximizing existing resources. As a small business owner, when I would come up against times where financially I just couldn't make the investment to expand my resource base, I'd simply step back and ask myself, is there any way that I can pursue or achieve this same goal within the means that I already have access to? So how that principle translated into this particular chapter of my farming journey was that I was at that time reading 2 books, which discussed how you could take 1 acre of grass and exponentially increase the forage production on it just through simple management principles. The books, by the way, were Management Intensive Grazing and Quality Pasture. You guys can buy these books at shepherdess.com, and it supports my work a ton when you do. Now, I was already practicing rotational grazing, but the more intensive practices outlined in this book encouraged me that with a simple $2,500 upgrade to my existing management systems, I could probably get 45 acres worth of productivity out of 30, or $225,000 worth of added value. Now, this is a sequel to that video I made in 2022, so if you're curious about any portion of this system, I'll link that video at the end of this one for you to watch next. Now, after making those upgrades, I stocked my 30 acres as if it were 45, basically doubling overnight the amount of animals I was raising. But instead of all sheep, I stocked a combination of sheep, goats, and cattle. And it went pretty well for a while. In fact, we grazed through the summer pretty happily, but before the end of my first year, I hit 2 major problems. The first one being really simple, and that was that my buffer zone in terms of forage or feed on the ground was narrow. If rainfall was lower than average, I'd run out of grass and have to buy feed. But the second and probably bigger issue I want to narrow in on here for this video is the fact that doubling the amount of animals I was raising overnight did not double my profitability, which is the second small business, small farming principle parallel here. And that is the importance of establishing your market before expanding production. Because I had not incrementally built out a market for those new types of animals in the same way that I had my sheep in years previous, my profit margin for those animals was way lower. In fact, evaluating my farm year over year, I was actually more profitable with fewer animals. I was making the exact same amount of money while working twice as hard to maintain a larger herd. So if I was to be completely honest with myself and factored in the cost of an hourly wage, that larger operation would be way, way less profitable. And it was really interesting because at that point, I realized that what I considered my most limiting factor, or something that was actually holding me back, was actually to my greatest advantage. The fact that I didn't immediately have 200 sheep and 50 to 100 acres gave me more time to build out a premium market as my flock grew little by little, and as my land improved little by little to accommodate the growth of that flock. And when I did suddenly double my operation with new types of animals that didn't necessarily produce product that would appeal to my existing customer base, I was lopsided because I had a lot of product and an underdeveloped market. And because I had to maintain cash flow, I was forced to sell that product at a lower profit margin. And this is such an important concept that I'm going to take it to the whiteboard. When you are running a small business, you are essentially working to establish and balance 3 categories in order to achieve profitability and long-term success. The 3 categories being market, product, and process. Where most startups go wrong, and where I went wrong during this experiment, is over-investing in the product and the process and making the market an afterthought, when really the important thing is to establish access to your market first. Whether it's a farmer's market or a website where people can buy your product on the internet, or my favorite, accumulating like-minded people onto an email newsletter waitlist, you need to first figure out how you are going to market your product at a price that will justify the process, rather than choosing a product, over-investing in the process, only to have to sell at a loss because your market is underdeveloped or absent altogether. Now, what this might look like real time is going to whatever venue you plan to accumulate customers through and evaluating existing demand. So let's first use a farmer's market as an example. Visit that farmer's market before becoming a vendor. Take note of what customers are buying already, what booths are swamped, and what booths are empty. Is the market missing any specific products that you could produce yourself? Let's use an online venue as a second example. Consider launching your new product on a pre-order basis. Gauge demand by how many people are willing to sign up for an email newsletter waitlist for, say, your spring dairy herd share or your autumn beef shares. Now, when it comes to a premium product like pasture-raised meat or organic grass-fed dairy, people are far more willing to engage with this waitlist format. And if you can accumulate, say, 50 or 100 people on that email waitlist, there's a very good chance that you will have an easy time selling whatever product at a profit when it comes time to sell. So think backward and find your market first. So where does that put me today? Well, I'm back to focusing on a smaller operation with higher profit margins. I've put raising beef and goats for profit on the back burner, and now I'm pretty exclusively focused on raising the best Dorper sheep in Northeast Texas, building out my premium market stream, which is my email newsletter list, little by little, in accordance with the growth of my flock. That initial $1,200 was not at all wasted. In fact, it was a massive advantage. Number one, it took my time on pasture down from 2 hours per day to just 30 minutes per day, giving me even more time to invest in marketing. And it most importantly helped me realize I did not need to invest $225,000 to reach my goals. And the experiment overall taught me something valuable that probably applies to life as well as farming, and that is the things that we would consider our limitations or things that are holding us back. Those might just be to our greatest advantage. And it's really hard for me because I am so driven that sometimes I push hard against those restraints, those limitations, and I hurt myself or I exhaust myself. And in this case, at least, I realized that those restraints weren't limiting factors, but they were guardrails. Guardrails that in this particular instance are helping to keep me on the path that I was created to follow in this particular season. Watch this video next for my original installation of that $2,500 grazing system. I look forward to seeing you there.